How's it going, everyone? So this is our group project. It's by Julian Diaz, Cason Nichols, and Brandon Soncarty. Today we're going to cover the threat model of a card reader at a grocery store. I also did include a little bit of information about some ATMs and whatnot. So let's get started here. Okay, so how it's done. My part of the project, I researched how the thefts actually get it done without going undetected, and that way they just don't get caught and they can make as much money as they possibly can off of unsuspecting people. So some tactics thieves use in the grocery store world. They got to be undetected by, like, say, the cashier or whoever's working checking out their groceries. Most of the time they will go in and actually buy something and insert their own card. That way they're able to put what's called a shimmer in, which is going to be covered in a few different slides here. I know Brandon went into more depth about the shimmers. Um, in the ATM world, they mainly target ATMs that are in unlit areas, kind of darker areas, say surrounding a building. That way they can't easily be seen. Like if a thief walked up to an ATM that's in a well lit area, like in my hometown, in our bank, we have one inside the walkway there, and it's well lit. There's cameras and everything. So obviously they're not going to target anything like that. Um, the thieves are crafty. They don't want to be caught, obviously. So they're going to figure out ways to make it less noticeable by, like, passerbyers. Um, a little bit about what kind of devices they are using. Um, Devices that criminals are using are going to be either micro thin chips. They're going to have little cameras on there. Most of the time there's multiple cameras on each chip. That way, as like a user is fumbling around with their card, all these cameras might have the chance to um catch an image of the mag strip on the back of someone's card. um the cameras are essentially just taking pictures of people's cards, and they're able to gather the data off the mag strip to break into their account and steal their money. Um, Same thing goes for, like, the shimmers that are actually inserted into the card reader. Um, those ones are pulling the data off the chip of the card. Um, that is updated into what I would presume as a live server with everyone's information on it. That way they can hack into their account and slowly take money out of that person's account. Most of the time, it goes without saying that they're really hard to detect. That's why people always are, like, grabbing the ATMs or card readers and making sure there's nothing, like, nothing wrong with them. Nothing will pop off. Um, yeah, so main thing on the ATMs, I've included some pictures here of the fake paneling. They essentially just go through, scout out ATMs, and then they're gonna go in and build fake panels. I know, like, ATMs are readily available for purchase, like, say someplace updates them or whatnot. 9 times out of 10, from my personal experience, most ATMs are the same shape. What normally changes is, like, if they have a screen on them, or if it's just a simple card reader with a little screen. So the paneling is easily accessible for these thieves. As you can see in some of these pictures here, those little chips all have cameras on there, and they drill little tiny holes that the cameras can see through, and then they'll go in and just stick that panel right over the existing one. So yeah. And then these guys are going to be your shimmers, the micro thin, paper thin, whatever you want to refer to them as. These guys are actually going to be inserted into the card reader. most of the time at the grocery stores, sometimes at the ATMs. I know our focus of the project here is grocery stores. So the major thing that we will see in grocery stores are these guys. Um, some of them do have cameras on there. I think on these bottom two images, there are some cameras on there. Those guys will, well, I guess you're not going to see the whole mag strip when you insert your card because only half of it will be sticking in. But these guys are going to essentially, when the person slides their chip in, it's going to read the data of the chip while also allowing the reader itself to still do the transaction at that grocery store. As you can see here, there are strategically placed slits in those shimmers that allow the card reader to still do the transaction, but yet as they slid the card in, it's gathering the data until the very end where there's nothing left and the card reader can still do its job. Um, this is just essentially like a foolproof way to gather someone's data as they slide the card through and out, while making the pin pad seem like there's nothing wrong with it. The people are going to still be able to buy whatever they're buying at the place, but unsuspectably, like knowing their data has been breached, it's been read, these people have access to their account pretty much. Let me see here. Let me just look through my notes. Um, yeah, like I mentioned, it's hard for these thieves to be caught because of how well the card reader still works after it's been tampered with. Um, it's just the average person is not going to be able to tell the difference, especially walking into like a grocery store like Safeway or Walmart. Are you really going to expect someone to gather all of the data off your card as you put it in to pay for your groceries? Most of the time, no. So that's what really makes this something that you have to look out for, and people need to be more aware. That's why most companies now are going with tap to pay. That's going to allow you not to insert your card. Same thing with like Apple Pay, Google Pay. You just stick your phone there. Yeah, there's some server security issues. Yeah, maybe, but you're not physically harming yourself by shoving your card into that card reader. So, I know later Brandon will talk about detecting and protecting yourself from compromised card readers, and Julian's gonna cover more of the software side of things. So that's gonna be it for my section of it. So I hope you enjoy.
My name is Julian Diaz, and I'm going to be talking about malware and network vulnerabilities in card readers. Now, there are a couple ways a card reader can be infected. I'm going to start off with talking about a card reader being infected over the internet. Many card readers are directly connected to the internet so that vendors can troubleshoot or apply tech support. So if an attacker has access to the local network that these card readers are connected to, it will not be that difficult for an attacker to gain access to these systems because of the communication between these card readers and a remote admin server is not encrypted. So that being said, an attacker can use methods like DNS spoofing or ARP poisoning to redirect the traffic from the card reader to a server that the attacker has control over. Now, another way card readers can be infected is physically, using malicious code that is written on the chip of the cards. Once these cards are inserted into a card reader via chip, the malicious code can be executed. In the article that I read, the researchers used this method to install a racing game on the card reader and was able to play the game using a pin pad. Now, given these two methods to install malware on a point-of-sale system, hackers use programs called RAM scrapers. The earliest evidence of a point-of-sale RAM scraping was dated back in about October of 2008. So, what is RAM scraping? Well, RAM scrapers are malicious programs that scrape memory from card readers to collect sensitive information such as credit card numbers, pins, expiration dates, and so on. Now, before I go too in depth about RAM scrapers, let me give some insight on different states in the transaction processing in a card reader. So the first state is data in memory. And this is where all credit card data is temporarily stored in plain text in the RAM of the merchant's credit card reader. Now in the second state is data at rest. Here transactions are stored for a short period of time, but it's encrypted so that it's ready to be sent over the network. And the third state is data in transit, and this is where the data is transferred over the network. Now given these three states, it's easy to tell where an attacker might want to attack, which is data in memory. And this is why RAM scrapers were created. Now there are many RAM scrapers, but the one I'll be talking about is Alina. Alina was developed sometime in 2012. Now when using some of the methods I talked about before, when Alina is executed, it will install itself on the victim systems by doing the following steps. Now first it's going to check if there's an update to be updated. Then it checks and removes any existing Alina code in the systems. Now lastly, Alina has a list of socially engineered file names, and it chooses a randomly selected name. Then it copies itself into the app data directory. Now after Alina has been installed, what it does is it takes a snapshot of all the running processes currently running on the card reader, then retrieves the information. But because there are so many processes that Alina has to check, Alina has a blacklist of processes to skip. Now if a process is not in the blacklist, then Alina uses regular expressions to read the memory content of that process to find the credit card information. So after checking a bunch of processes, if Alina gets a hit, then it's going to use HTTP post to send the data that it scraped and sends it to a command and control server that the attacker has control over. Now in the picture that is on the current slide, you can see the assembly code of Alina when Alina submits the scraped data to a remote server using HTTP post. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brandon Soncarty. I'm going to be going over detection and prevention when going through the threat model of a grocery store card reader. A lot of this information came from PC Mag. That was my main resource for this. They had a lot of good information on what you can use to figure out if a card reader is suspicious and how you can decide whether or not it's been tampered with. So I just wanted to give them a shout out because they were really useful. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is skimmers. Skimmers are a big one that we used to go over. It's something that has kind of deteriorated now. It's not as common just because most people don't swipe their cards anymore. They're using the card readers or the chip readers, but I'll go over that more in a second. So a lot of times these skimmers are made to look like part of the reader. They just fit over. And you can see on the picture on the left, that's the normal one without the skimmer. That's just a normal card reader, not tampered with at all. And then on the right-hand side, that one has the skimmer. And one thing that I thought was interesting about this skimmer is that it actually, if you look at the pin pad, it actually has the finger covering so that people get the false impression that they're not getting their pin taken because there's actually more privacy being given by the skimmer than there was on the left-hand side of the card reader without the skimmer. Skimmers also don't interfere with the functionality of the card reader. They can steal card numbers and information that are used to make clone cards, or you can just use that card number to purchase things online like through Amazon. The best way to pick out whether or not the card reader is a skimmer or not is if you look at the other card readers around you. So if you see 3 at the checkout stands that are just like the one on the left, and then you see one on the right that looks a little bit different, has that covering, that's a little suspicious. Grab where it's like covering where your fingers go. If you grab that and wiggle it around, usually these skimmers will have some kind of wiggle with them, and you can tell whether or not it was actually manufactured that way. So a lot of times the skimmers, like the skimmers will just be placed over it. And if you could wiggle it, then that means that it wasn't actually part of the first system that was actually produced. These card readers are made to be very resilient, and they're supposed to be well made and put together, so they're not supposed to wiggle at all. All right, now moving on to the next thing, we have the shimmers. These shimmers are what are taking over instead of the skimmers now. These shimmers are incredibly tiny and hard to detect. They're used to read the card, the chip on the card instead of the magnetic strip. So now that all of our cards have these chips on them, they're supposed to be more secure, right? Well, these shimmers kind of use those chips to get the same kind of information that that the magnetic readers were giving already before using the skimmers. So these shimmers are placed inside the card reader, and then they can't be used to replicate another chip as of right now. I'm sure somebody will come up with some kind of technology to make new chips if they haven't yet. But the best defense against these shimmers is to actually just monitor your bank account and set up bank notifications. Because these things are actually inside of the card readers, it's pretty difficult to see them. They're so small and they're so tiny, like you're not going to be able to see them from the outside. So the best defense is actually just to keep an eye on your transactions. Make sure that nobody's doing things on your account that you didn't do. And that should be pretty easy if you remember where you spent money at. Which brings us on to our next topic, which is overall defense. So the best way to defend against these card reader skimmers and shimmers overall is to actually just go through your bank. It's really important to frequently monitor your bank transactions. If you have a banking app, that can help a lot. Most of these banks now have apps that you can log in and see instantly almost which transactions you've made. I made a purchase a half an hour ago and I can already see it on my account on my banking app. You can also set up notifications through your banking app and get notified whenever there's a weird purchase that's been made. I've actually had my identity stolen, and when it was stolen, I got a text message to my phone from my bank instantly because there was somebody over in Virginia trying to use my card to buy gas. So I was actually able to deny that person and save myself from losing a whole bunch of money on gas that I didn't buy myself. So all I had to do was just send a simple yes, that was me, or no, that wasn't me message back to my bank, and they would either approve it. Say I was on vacation in Virginia and I was trying to get gas. All I would have to just say is yes, and it's all good. Or I could say no, that wasn't me, obviously, because I'm in Washington instead of Virginia, and save myself the trouble of having to go through my bank and dispute charges. Now, just saying that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Disputing is actually not that hard of a process. They can usually tell pretty easily whether it was you or not making that purchase based off of your purchasing trends, where you were. Like if I didn't catch that original one and I disputed the charge, I would probably be able to get my money back because one, my bank knows me, they're a smaller bank, and two, I can show them that I made purchases in Washington that same day, the day before, the day after, and that was during the time that somebody else was trying to use my account over in Virginia. So yeah, really the best defense against these card skimmers and card shimmers are through your bank, your banking apps, your banking policies, making sure that you have fraud detection through your bank. And usually you're automatically enrolled in it. But if you have any questions, always be sure to just communicate that with your bank. And usually they will know what's going on, because that's a huge, huge problem that banks are having to deal with. But yeah, that is the conclusion of the threat model of a card reader. And thank you for listening to our presentation.